Alright guys, so we're here for part 2 of the video, and a lot of this is going to be, or mainly it's going to be just the car now, setting up the brackets, putting some sealant in some areas, getting it all prepared, and then bringing the shutter over, putting it on top, running the wiring and everything like that. So I'll see if I'm going to make this a part 2 and then do a part 3. I'm not too sure. I'll see. I might do a part 3 to finish off with the wiring, depending on how long this goes for. But let me show you the spots that I want to spread some silicone on first while I try to work out the bracket, so that way it can dry up before I put everything on. So just got the car charging while I work this all out. But before we do anything, there's some spots here, as you can see, some gaps from factory, which is normal, that I'm gonna fill up with silicone. So that way when I put the shutter on top and I put the foam strip going along here, it all sits in nice and even with no gaps, or as little as possible anyway. So that way when water, if you're high pressure in the car or whatever, water always manages to work its way through. It's probably a good idea to just check for any other gaps or run a bit more silicone in some spots, but we'll see how we go anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna put silicone in here, smooth it out as best as I can. Over here and over there, same thing. And I'll let it dry, and that should be the only spot we put the silicone in, unless I find another gap, like I said. So I'll do that for now. And as that dries, I've got to work out this bracketry setup, because they've given us more brackets than what we might need. And I think we can either use that bracket, and these little brackets, or we can use the one strip there on that side and on this side, which is what I'm going to be probably doing. But I'll run you through that so you guys can see what I do. So this is all I'm using, just your normal roof and gutter silicone. I've got it in black, obviously, to match. And I got the Sika brand, but you can get even your cheap Bunnings brand, it's all the same crap. I just thought I'd get this just in case it holds a little bit stronger. But yeah, let's go. Alright guys, so I've siliconed that side and I've siliconed this side. I'll show you what I've done. So there was a big gap in there. Now it's filled in all the way down in there. It's filled in. There was also a little gap inside of there, all the way in there, and there was a gap coming all the way up. So I've just simply put black silicone all the way up in there, all the way up here, all the way there, and into there, and sort of with my finger just like pushed it inside and like try to smudge it in. Now there's going to be a foam seal going from one end all the way to here. I believe it goes to there or to there, wherever it is. And then the shutter itself has another bit of foam underneath, and rubber that comes all the way here, and rubber that comes all the way up there, and the rubber actually folds all the way inside and tucks in all the way. So all this is going to be covered with rubber anyway. And then what people do is they actually run a whole bead of silicone, some people, all the way along, all the way along, all the way along. Boom, they run a bead of silicone the whole way to like make sure it doesn't seal. I'm not going to do that. There's also an option, once it's on, to lift up the rubber, squirt some sealant all the way along the sides instead of squashing it down. That way it might be easier to take off. But it will, if you do that, it will get stuck with silicone, and you'll have to somehow work out another way to rip it all off if you have to. So that's this side. Let me show you the other side. Okay, this side, same thing. I've got it there. I've got it running down. Cover that gap all the way up. It's covered, and I also squirted some extra silicone up the top a little bit. So that's all covered. There's no more gap now. silicone all the way, same thing in there, just squirted it into there. And then, yeah. There could be water coming in through these little gaps. So another thing that I could do later on, if I wanted to, and if I notice that it's affecting me and water's still making its way through from here, is I could just go through and put silicone there, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, on all of them. And that would stop the water from coming through there as well. And same thing with anywhere here. There could be gaps inside in other little sections. Now I know that there is there's a gap through here, and water will shoot through there. Water will come in through that side. So there is something that I want to do. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the water from here at the moment. I know that's going to come in regardless, but if I can stop it from anywhere from here, that would be amazing. So yeah, while that's drying, let's get into the brackets. I might push the car forward and show you guys what I'm going to do. So I'm going to run you through the brackets, like these L brackets that they've got, these individual brackets for each side that they've got. I've worked out where they're supposed to sit, and then I've worked out where these ones sit. Now I doubt you have to use these as well as these, as if like these are some type of like reinforcement bracket that adds onto them. Maybe you can, but you don't need it. Like if there's going to be any type of reinforcement, it'd be the front, but I don't believe you need it. Now you've got this bracket here that I've worked out would go into this position. So you'd remove this off, you'd remove obviously those two screws, and you'd put this in this position, put those screws in place, put that bracket above, put that little hook thing there on top of this bracket, and put the bolts through, and that would stay there. But I realized that this side here doesn't actually screw onto anything, so that would just be hanging in the air like that. There's this little section that comes out like that. I don't know where that would attach to anyway, but it would give you one mounting point up here. So that would go there if I was to use that bracket, and this bracket would go over here if I was to use this bracket. So yeah, again, this would come off, go on top of this, screws in those positions, and no screw here, but there's this little bracket that pushes in, and I don't know where it would attach to over here. Anyway, and this one here, you'd remove those two screws. Again, you'd remove this as well as those screws. You'd place this bracket in place there, boom. And that would line up with that. You'd put that bracket on top of this, and that would mount in this position, giving you a mounting point there. And you do the same thing with this one. And then, so you'd have one mounting point there, one there, one there, one there. And then you would use, I'm assuming, these brackets here. You wouldn't use it like this, I think. You'd use it like this. And for the spots in between, you'd mount that there. And this will give you an option there and there, or there and there, wherever. And it would give you another couple of spots on both sides, there and there, to mount. But I'm going to use these brackets. They're a lot more simple. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4. They give you 3 spots to mount the shutter to. So if that's mounted like that, you can mount it there, there, and there, which is where it's supposed to be. And on the bottom here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots to mount. And it's a long bracket like this. It uses up all those holes there, like that. Except for that last one, you don't touch the last one. And the same thing for this side. Mounts there. When I was watching the Savage video, this was touching there, I believe. I could be wrong. That was touching there. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to make a mark right there. bracket, if this is part of the bracket there, you would need to like slice this there and slice this down. Probably remove the screw, I don't remember. But you'd have to slice a section of this down and out, and you'd have to put a bit of foam. The bracket, I believe, was a bit different, like it burnt down there, and you put a bit of foam on there, and this mounted, that would recess itself inside of this, where that plastic would be. And he said to put silicone behind here and all that, but it doesn't look like we need to do that here. So if we don't need to do that here, the only other thing I'm thinking of is, do I put silicone between there and there? But I don't think I do, because there's plenty of rubber that overhangs and there's foam that goes along the top. If I do put silicone, I'll just peel that rubber back and I'll squirt some in there. But like I said, I'm going to install everything, and if water does leak through here, I will then add silicone where I need to. But there's going to be plenty of protection and rubber stopping all the water. You definitely need to add silicone in these sections though, because water would definitely come in through there, I reckon, and through there. But anyway, I'm going to put the long brackets on now. Now I can utilize the same bolts, take the original factory bolts and use them to put back through into the car to hold this bracket in. But I don't know, I might use these. I'll see how I go while I'm installing it, and after it's done, I'll show you guys what I do. Alright guys, those brackets are in. There's one, there's two. Now I've nipped them up firm with the electric ratchet, but I wasn't sure exactly where to nip it up. So what I've done is, I don't know if you can notice, but these brackets sort of bend up ever so slightly. Well, it's actually more than slightly, but now I don't know if they're supposed to do that or if I'm supposed to go through now and like bend them a bit more flat, sorry, so it's more 90. But what I've done is I've gone just below that lip there, because so all the way, just like it's pretty much, it's almost flush, but slightly lower. It's a bit more flush over there, I guess, but yeah, that's what I've done there. And also on this side should be the same. Just get it by feel. Yeah, it's perfect. So I've perfectly put it on like this, and again it goes back up to being a bit more flush there. But I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go through now and bend these down a bit. Now, the reason why I made them slightly lower is because they do bend up, and also in theory, I'd rather the bolt pull down the shutter. So if the shutter's sticking up a bit And as I tighten the bolts, you'd think in theory it would just pull down and make it go more flush, or it'll make it pull tighter to the tub. But again, I don't know if this is supposed to bend out like this or not, or if it's supposed to be a bit more flat. But if it's supposed to be more flat, I might need to get the mallet out, or I don't know, just stand up and just apply a bit of pressure on these tabs. Just a little bit, just to get them down, because they do look like they're sticking out a bit much. But the only way to tell that is by bringing on the roller shutter and just dropping it down. So when I drop it down and I'm happy with, and I can see where this mounts up to the shutter, where it's gonna pull and grab, if the outer edge is sitting on this tub and it looks like it's a good little gap and it'll pull it down, then I will leave these where they are, and I will grab my ratchet with my hand and I will nip them all up a lot more, well, not a lot, got it pretty tight, but I'll nip them up nice and firm by hand, by feel, and I'll be able to tell if they're nice and tight. But if not, if it's sitting up too high and needs to come down a bit, it's probably because these are bent up. I'll have to take the shutter back down again, loosen all these a bit, and drop that a bit more down, because I don't think I can bend this part here, but I'm not going to be able to bend this little section here. It doesn't stick out far enough for me to apply pressure and leverage it down without damaging it. So hopefully I don't need to bring it back down, because then I got to take the shutter off again and all that stuff, or leave the shutter on, just loosen them and see where it naturally tries to drop. But yeah, I guess next step is either putting on the shutter just to test fit it, or starting to work out my drainage, because there's some grommets on either side, there, and also there's some down the bottom there and there. I don't know if I'm going to use them. There's some on the sides there, and also up here. But where it sits on that shutter, the drainage system sits on the bottom of the shutter over here, and it would need to come out, and you'd need to drill a hole there. And when you drill the hole there, it will come out the shutter, boom, out there, and it'll exit. But if I can use that grommet, it'd be easier for now, and I wouldn't have to drill there. And I could use this grommet here for maybe the wiring, bring the wiring out of. But again, I gotta have a look, see what I can do. All right. Alright, so I've put that seal on the back there, and then I also noticed while I had this test fitted, there was a bit of light coming through here, a bit of a gap. So all I've done is, up until where the first clamp is on this bracket that sticks out, I've added a bit more foam, but just on the inside, not where the actual rubber seal touches here, just to give it that extra bit of security in terms of potential water trying to rush through. I know it's not going to do much, and if it does, I'll have to squirt silicone on the inside when I peel that rubber back. But for now, I've just added those extra bits of rubber from there to there, the foam, more as a spacer, if anything, to help fill up that gap. That's the main thing apparently anyway. I'll see how it goes. Alright, so I've got this shutter in somewhat in a square position. I've squared it all up, and looks like this would be the position I'll screw it down to. So now to fix it down, you need to get under here, and there's a channel. Now you're provided with these little studs there, with some washers and nuts, and these little channel nuts They've got a bit of a weird shape to them. So the way you put that in is, you have the Allen key head here. There's a recessed Allen key section sticking out towards you, and the other side's just a flat spot. And you feed it in with this little notched area facing you. And what happens is, there's little sections underneath here that you slide this in to, if I can get it with one hand, yep, and then you slide it across, and that little notched out section wedges itself into this little slot. That way when you go to turn it, it can't spin, and it locks itself inside of this little groove. So now I've loosened it ever so slightly, and now it'll slide through. But if I lock it into position, I can turn this in, nip that little Allen key section up, and it'll stay there in that position, regardless if I was to remove this nut from there, it'll stay there in that position. So what we're going to want to do is, we're going to want to feed them in, slide them through, lift this up, pop it through, or push the nut past this little section with a little pencil or something and screw the stud through, catching that nut, and it'll lock it into that position for us. So I'm going to slide them through now and get them all into position, all along here, nip them all up, tighten it down, and then the last thing that I have to do before I start mucking around the wiring and the drainage is going to be making sure that the tailgate closes smoothly up against the shutter. If not, I've got to release. I can leave them tightened up, which is the good part. I can release some of these screws back here and over there, lift up this bracket a little bit, enough so that door can slam against the back of the shutter, sealing it nice without destroying the seal. But we'll get to that part later. Alright guys, so just brought the car into, I've got two garages, so I just brought my car back into my garage. Didn't have room in here to assemble it here and park the car under the house. But now that it's on the car, it's bolted. I feel like this side maybe sticking out slightly more than this side. It's about the same, it's just that the rubber happens to push out more there, making it look like it's sticking out more. Maybe with the sun it might bend down a bit, but anyway. I can always adjust it once it's operating again, loosen up 6 bolts, shift it over, tighten it back down again, very easy. Also I had to make little adjustments. I had to release 3 of these on each side. I had to raise it up a bit, this side and on this side. Had to raise it up a bit. And let's pop this tripod out. Okay. So, let me show you. So the rubber hits the tailgate and hopefully it'll slide over the top, sealing that up nicely. Although this side is okay, this side seems to have a bit of a larger gap in there. Could slide maybe this rubber out, or maybe jam another rubber underneath there. Actually no, I couldn't, because this tailgate opens up. But even with the tailgate opening, push it twice, it drops now when the shutter's open. If I close the shutter and I push twice, it sort of jams in there, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because I can still just tap it off and I'll do that. And especially if I'm opening up the shutter anyway and it decides to open up, I can still unlock the tray and it opens up. As long as it unlocks, I mean, we're used to, you know, pulling with the handle, opening it up. As long as it's unlocked and I'm just tapping it open and it opens up, that's fine. I'm happy with that. But yeah, so far, I'm happy with it. Yeah, so next step is going to be tackling the wiring. I've got to tackle the wiring, do the drainage as well, the drain hoses, which with the drain hose, pop this open. With the drain hose, let me pop this phone down here. The rubber ones go on the back, so that'll go there. You'll put a hose clamp. I'm just gonna do that for now, even if it sits there like this. I'm just gonna do that because I don't really want to be drilling. To get it more smooth, you need to drill a hole like into there. So it goes from here and it just goes boom into there. But like I said, I want to get the tub seal kit. It's a bracket that comes over all this, and even I think goes into these two screws there. And if I do that, if I drill a hole now, it might affect it later. So as long as water exits out, I'm okay for now. I'll put that there. Also, I think I worked out what those brackets are for. So these brackets that I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure they're reinforcement brackets, because you can mount stuff. You can pop those little nuts that I showed you before into this side, slide them through. You can get attachments that go over on your shutter, which is pretty cool. Now, there's a bit of, if I push down on this, it does have some sort of flex. So I'm imagining if you're putting something over here, like a rack, and you're bolting things to the rack, of course, if the weight's distributed against multiple points, it's gonna take the load across a big surface area, so it's all right. But regardless, if you're putting too much pressure on it, it will warp this rail. So once that mounts there and there, it's gonna distribute the load on here. So whatever weight you got pushing down, it's gonna be held in by this bracket here. So you actually, I'll take that into consideration. I probably won't add it on the front section. If I'm gonna put any type of tub racking on, it'll be the weight. I'll also put some roof rack on the roof between the factory roof points. So the weight will be pushing on the rear to the front if I'm gonna do anything that's long, that's heavy. So if anything, I might install this bracket later on. But those brackets are not random shit. It's actually probably there to support if you're putting something heavy, so it helps support the weight. So it's good that I figured that out. Probably look like an idiot as well. But if I put that bracket there, it's also over here, it's also going to be in the way of the bracket that you need to install for the tub seal. So I'll see what's going to happen with that. It's all like sort of, yeah, it's everything bolting on top of everything. So anyway, for now, I'll do that. And the wiring is going to come out of this front. I think the wiring will end up coming out of that grommet there. Wherever it is, can't see it. Should be there. And the wiring for everything is on that side as well. So, yeah. So yeah, that's the wiring. It'll go through there. It'll come out. I gotta somehow get it in through here, and you take out the back seat. So once you take the back seat down, you gotta work your way around and take some of this off, which I believe you gotta take this plastic off here, and you gotta take the seal, peel the seal back. I think it's a bit gooey under here. I've watched some videos of people removing this. It's a bit gooey under there. So yeah, take that off, take the plastic off, peel this back, and there's a grommet somewhere in here. The grommet comes back, and the battery is under the seat. The battery is under the seat here, and the wiring should attach from there. Yeah, and feed that up, and that should be good. There's already terminals here that have been crimped on, so it should be pretty easy to make it all plug and play. Use the harness as well. But yeah, that will probably be in the next video. But yeah guys, so far it's looking good. I'm pretty happy with that so far. Guys, thanks for watching so far. And I'll see you in the next video where we can hopefully finish it off.